Oh, well, that'll work. We'll use that. All right. So let's start with a rose for Emily. We said we're going to talk about themes. Themes are those big ideas that a work addresses. Anybody give me a theme that's present in the story? How do you see that?
Miss Emily is constantly hiding behind the door and never coming out to speak with her.
Okay. So definitely that idea of hiding behind the door, you're not sure. Anybody see a different theme or big idea that's engaged in the work?
Romance.
How?
Everyone's talking about how her and the guy, I don't remember his name,
Homer?
that guy,
Mm-hmm.
are probably going to get married, but they might not because he's a bachelor.
Okay. Different ideas? Death, thank you. I don't think we have to discuss how that's present in the story. I think we all should know that one. Other ideas? Loneliness? Good one.
Decay.
Say it again.
Decay, like growth. Madness.
Say it again.
Madness.
Madness.
Because what I got out of the story is that she killed him and slept next to him.
Yes, that's correct.
Eerie?
Eerie? Any other thoughts, ideas, big ideas that you think are in the work? Okay. Once, twice. All right. So if we look at theme, remember that concept of theme is that big idea. It's not the plot. We want to separate those two things. When we're discussing theme, the plot is used as support, but it's a totally different idea. When we're talking here, it's what's a concept the story seems to be engaging or an idea that it focuses around. So if we look at the list that we came up with, we have some things that are more tones. The story has an eerie tone and a creepy tone, but ultimately it's not necessarily a theme because it's not an idea it focuses around or has a message about. When we look at some of the ideas like suspicion or romance, they're in the work, but does the work have anything to say about the concept? Is it focused around suspicion? Not really. People don't quite think that Emily has done something. They think she might have something hidden, but it's more curiosity that leads them to break in that bedroom, not a thought that, hey, I bet she has Homer's body upstairs. They're shocked by the fact that this body is there. Same thing with romance. There's romance present, but I think if we look, our romance kind of ties more to our loneliness and madness than it does a story just about romance. Darling. So when we start to look here, I think better ideas for, hey, where are our thematic themes would be things like death, loneliness, madness. We could probably add to this list with some of the other things that we discussed in the story. Like, We talked about that idea of how it engages society. We talked about that idea of young versus old, that the young people in town seem to have a very different impression of how to do things than the older people do. And so when we're talking about theme, it's these big ideas that are present in the work. And then we saw that next step introduced in the video. Once we have a concept about what are these themes or big ideas the work engages, we have to move into what we call a thematic statement. Having this big idea present is there, but the work has to engage it and say something about it. A very popular theme that you see all over the place is love. Take a second and think about all of the different couples you can imagine in your head. Does their relationship, do any two relationships look alike for how they work? No, because you have some people that you look at and you go, okay, I totally understand how you two work. Got it. And then you look over here and you're like, oh my God, why are you two together? Like all you do is fight and argue. You seem to hate each other. Like, I don't understand how this works. Love can look a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's what you aspire to have. And sometimes that couple looks like they should be on a poster to keep people from having sex. Because you're just like, oh my God, I don't want to picture that at all. When we talk about love in a thematic statement idea, we have to understand that even though love may be the theme of a work, the work is always going to have very different statements to make about love. Sometimes characters may end up together and it's a happy statement. Sometimes a work may focus on two people that started out in love and now hate each other. So when we look at an idea like death, keep with a black marker, why not? If we know it's a theme in the work, our task to move towards a thematic statement, which is going to help us next week with writing an essay, is to figure out what does the work have to say about death. Here, we have a very different statement being written by Faulkner about death. What are some of the ways that you would explain Faulkner's message about death in the story? Go ahead.
Death reveals some of your secrets.
Okay. Anybody have a different read? What the story seems to say about death? It makes you depressed? Any other different reads? Now you notice here, we don't want to throw anything out. You want to have that opportunity to brainstorm. And then like we did here, we're going to kind of take the list and go, okay, what works and what doesn't. And the other piece here is, as we look at a process like this, there are a lot of right answers. There's also a lot of wrong answers. And we need to embrace that idea. Yes?
That brings up curiosity.
Any other thoughts? No? No, just move your hand. Okay.
It comes when you least expect it.
We exhausted ourselves? So even if we take just this list here, we want to kind of get that idea of, hey, how does the work engage this idea? Now, the good thing about writing like this is we said there are lots of right answers, but the work is always going to help us to know we're right. Just like when we wrote our short answers and we had to find evidence to support ourselves. When we're writing in this way of a thematic statement, the work is going to inform us when we're wrong because we don't have anything to support the idea we're having. So if you looked at this and you're like, death is only for women in this story. And then really quickly they go, oh wait, no, her dad dies and Homer dies. It's going to be there. Now I'm picking a really extreme answer here to show that. But you'll notice that if we can't support the idea with the quotes, we know that we're wrong. And so, anybody a math science person? You tend to get higher grades in math and science than you do in English. If you are, and you're just choosing not to speak, or you're a very logical person, you're a yes or no, a black or white, work like this will drive you crazy. Because when there are many right answers, you hate that because you're like, no, just tell me that I'm right. Tell me what I have to think. And instead, when I get out of your way and say, hey, you can think lots of things, your head wants to explode. So as we look at it, we have 4 ideas that we came up with. I'm going to start with Aaron's. It comes when you least expect it. In the story, does the author focus on this idea? Does he have anything specific to say about the sudden nature of death? Not really. And so if you took that idea as your thematic statement, what you're going to end up doing is finding evidence of, hey, look, her dad died. And hey, look, Homer died. But then when it becomes, well, can you find me anything that talks about nobody expected it? You'd be like, oh, crap, that's not there. And when you write your answer, you're going to write what we call an assertive answer. You're just going to repeat and keep saying the same things over and over. And so when we're looking at talking about theme and what the author has to say, an idea like this, it's too literal, and it's also not something that's focused on in the piece. I'm going to go with the curiosity piece. Yes, people are curious to get into Emily's house. But is it because she died or because she wasn't a part of the community? Yeah, because she moves away from everything and sort of disappears for a while, and her name had that kind of monumental quality, people are just interested in getting in there to see what it is. It's not so much that it's her being dead. If we go beyond Emily, think about Homer. Homer dies. But is anybody curious about what happened? He just disappears. But is anybody curious about what happens to him? Where he went? Or are they just like, he ran away from Emily. I'm sure she chased him off. This one, it's not going to work out for us as a thematic statement because the author doesn't investigate the idea. Here, with depressed, I think I might change the wording a bit. Because when we look, yes, Emily is affected when her dad dies. Yes, Emily is affected when Homer dies. But do we know that it's depression? Do we see her as sad and mournful and any of those qualities? No. What I might do is go, hey, wait. After her dad dies, we start to see that mental instability, that madness. And then when Homer leaves, we start to see it pop back up. So I might kind of bring that idea over here and edit this a bit. And maybe saying, instead of even makes, and be a little bit closer in saying that death might bring out mental issues. Now, that's not to say that depression can't be a part of that. I'm just kind of broadening it a bit. Now, am I going to have a whole lot of stuff to talk about here? Maybe. But at least we're looking at hey, let's change it a little bit. Let's look at this one, that death reveals secrets. Does death reveal a quality about Emily, even if we go back to the death of her father? Mm-hmm. Does Homer's disappearance and later them finding him dead reveal that Emily has an issue with loneliness and people being away? Uh-huh. This one is probably the strongest approach thematically because we see the author bring it up multiple times. So when we look at kind of developing this idea of, hey, what's a theme that's present in the work? We want to be able to go from something that's a little bit broader here, what's that big idea, to being able to narrow it to what does the author have to say about that idea within the work? Now, where are we going to go with this as we move to next week? We're going to write an essay over the story. Now, this is going to take us more than just next week because remember, next week is kind of weird with Wednesday being PSAT day. We're going to kind of branch into the week after. We're going to put together at least 4-paragraph essay about this story. Now, there are multiple choices for how this is going to work. We have leveled the prompts. So level 1 are easy. These are prompts that are persuasive in nature. You mastered persuasive writing last year. So if you decide, I'm going to do a persuasive essay because I know how to do that, I'm going to grade it much harsher because it should be perfect because you've already learned that skill. There are 2 different prompts that you can choose from. There's a mid-level, a level 2. There are 2 prompts there as well. Those prompts will look more like this. What's a theme in the story that's kind of obvious? And how do we see it discussed? Then there's a level 3. This is for those of you that really want to challenge yourself or that really liked this story and understood it in a certain way. It's going to ask a prompt that's more of a pre-AP level question. So it's going to take an idea like, hey, can you talk about the generational difference in town and how it reveals meaning in the story? So it kind of asks you to do a little bit more and be able to understand the story at a certain depth. Now, if you're doing something that's at a level 3, the grading might be a little bit more lenient. If you're going to challenge yourself and step out, I'm going to have your back there versus if you're going to go, oh, I'm going to do the easy one. Yeah, I'm going to expect a lot more of you. It better be perfect. So we're going to be looking at those prompts next week. We're going to do some work to get your thoughts together. And then we're going to be drafting, we're going to do some revision and a final copy. So it's going to be rocking and rolling and moving. I'm going to end that.